The heyday of the Prince of Persia franchise was in the mid-2000s, starting with 2002's The Sands of Time and fizzling out with 2010's The Forgotten Sands, but the franchise existed before 2002. The series first struck with Prince of Persia back in 1989 on the Apple II computer and was slowly, yet steadily, ported over the next 25 years to over 24 different platforms. Interestingly, the NES and Super NES ports released at the same time in late 1992 and offer highly similar experiences save for the expected graphical differences. Prince of Persia stands out on the NES especially as it's the only cinematic platformer on the system. The 16-bit consoles would eventually bridge the gap between personal computers and home consoles for the genre. Games like Blackthorn and Flashback: The Quest for Identity wowed visually, but weeded out players with their slow and tedious gameplay. Despite being a one-of-a-kind game on the system, the NES's port of Prince of Persia never really received much attention, largely due to its late arrival to the system and its simultaneous release alongside its better-looking Super Nintendo sibling. This is one you've likely overlooked, so let's see what's up. If you've ever played a cinematic platformer before, you should know what to expect with Prince of Persia, which is both good and bad. We'll get to the bad in a second, but the good news is that this game is no worse than you're predicting, if that can be considered good news. The point of the game is to navigate through 12 harrowing, pitfall-laden levels in search of the exit to the next level. It's medieval Persia, and you're in a medieval Persian prison. You've been trying to rescue the princess, who is locked away in the tower several floors above you, by the evil wizard Jafar, who intends to marry her very soon. You're not a huge fan of that, but you don't have time to pout about it. Jafar and the princess are set to be married in 1 hour, and you've got floors to climb and guards to kill in order to stop it. In the levels, you'll encounter a number of tricky obstacles like falling floors that will drop you to your doom, especially if spikes await you, tricky floor buttons that open and shut doors around the level, and tedious jumps that require precise timing and a decent run and go. The first thing you need to do, however, is find the sword hiding out in the first level. Without the sword, you can't fight the guards or proceed. The game has some nice features, understanding its own contrived difficulty. For instance, if you need to walk near a ledge, you can hold in Bs so that you tiptoe to the ledge without falling. You can also tiptoe through spikes on the floor without taking damage. To drop down, you need to turn and face the other way and then drop down so that you grab hold of the ledge. And to climb a series of ledges, you have to place your character on the edge and face the correct direction. The game is often forgiving and locks you into where you should be if you're reasonably within range. These actions are all tedious, but they make sense and aren't difficult to get the hang of. The game's real difficulty stems from the timer, which will burn first-time players just finding their way through the game. You literally have 1 hour to get to the princess, indicated by the timer at the bottom that updates you every few minutes. For 12 levels, you have to average about 5 minutes per level, which is doable in a Sonic the Hedgehog game, but in Prince of Persia is a tough task, especially considering the timer doesn't reset when you die. Knowing where to go is only half the battle. You still need to defeat the guards and try not to fall victim to a loose floor tile or mistime a long leap over the abyss or spikes. Thankfully, continues are infinite. You can die as many times as you need, and you'll restart at the entrance to the level where you died. Once again, though, time is working against you, but at least it's not a complete game over. You also get a password for each new level, and those passwords can be handy because they lock you into the time you have left. So one trick you could use is to take the time you need to figure out a level, and then go back and enter the password and do it all again with your new know-how, and salvage all that time you lost dying a million times trying to figure it all out. The passwords are completely numeric, but are still hard to read somehow, so good luck with that. One of the big cardinal sin no-nos of this game is it has potions that can either give you health or hurt you, and they look the exact same. So, you'll need to memorize the locations of ones that give you health and ones that hurt you as you make your way through the levels. This isn't so bad, considering you're going to be retrying most of the levels over and over again anyway. You'll memorize them in your sleep. Another no-no is that the game requires a leap of faith from time to time, something that's even spelled out in the manual. Well, thanks for the warning, manual writer, but I'm still upset about it. I appreciate that sword fighting the guards requires a little strategy. The guards increase their skill and hit points as you ascend, and each do roughly the same thing, but you can parry their attacks by blocking with B and then take a jab at them with A, being mindful of your distance to them as you fight. The thing I had the hardest time with, besides figuring out where on earth to go a few times despite the small levels, is converting long leaps. Many long jumps require a little bit of a run and go to make a cross, and the timing for when to commit that jump is often precarious. You'll either jump too soon and whiff on grabbing the ledge, falling to your splatty doom, or you'll commit too late and run off the ledge like Wile E. Coyote, except instead of hovering weightlessly for a moment of bewilderment, you plummet to your neck-breaking demise. All said, Prince of Persia on the NES is a fine game if you're willing to do what it wants, which is practice and learn each level inside and out. It's a difficult game, but largely in an expected way. It doesn't throw anything new at you beyond what you see in the first few levels. You just need to master the big jumps, avoid falls and spikes, and slay all the guards. The biggest hurdle, besides the jumps, pun intended, is knowing where to go in all 12 levels and figuring that out with time to spare in order to save the princess. It doesn't matter what level you're on, if the time runs out, that's all she wrote. You might also want to hurry and get this over with because the soundtrack is lackluster and very repetitive. Again, if you're a Prince of Persia fan, there are plenty of ports of this one, including the Game Boy, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and more. Outside of their graphical appearance, they're largely the same. Outside of mobile games and remakes of older games in the series, there hasn't been a substantial entry since 2010's Forgotten Sands at the time of this video, which is too bad. Well, that's going to do it for today's game. As always, consider waiting to save the princess after she's been married. Those things are nullable, and divorce is an option, so thanks for watching.